On the day of his impeachment vote, President Yoon has spoken, apologizing to the people over his abrupt martial law declaration. He says the fate of the remainder of his term will now be in the hands of the ruling People Power Party. Our Kim Do-yeon starts us off.
Making a public appearance for the first time since Wednesday morning when he lifted the martial law decree imposed, President Yoon apologized for the public chaos that stemmed from his decision to declare martial law in South Korea for the first time in 45 years.
매우 송구스럽게 생각하며 많이 놀라셨을 국민 여러분께 진심으로 사과드립니다. 저는 이번 계엄 선포와 관련하여 법적, 정치적 책임 문제를 회피하지 않겠습니다.
The address came as the National Assembly is set to vote on his impeachment motion on the same day. And as the fate of the remainder of his term is being decided, President Yoon also said during the address that he will now yield all decisions to the ruling People Power Party on his term, as well as the means to stabilize the political situation of the country.
저의 임기를 포함하여 앞으로의 전국 안정 방안은 우리 당에 일임하겠습니다. 향후 국정 운영은 우리 당과 정부가 함께 책임지고 해 나가겠습니다.
While this doesn't specify what it means in terms of how the country will be run, the announcement comes as ruling People Power Party Chair Han Dong-un changed his initial stance and said that he's in favor of impeaching the president as there cannot be another day under his unstable rule. Votes from lawmakers who backed Chairman Han could tip the scale and reach the 200 votes needed to impeach. But with Yoon's new announcement, it's unclear how these lawmakers will now decide to vote, as the ruling PPP will have the power to decide. Also, during the address, Yoon tried to explain the reason behind the declaration of martial law, saying it came from the urgency he felt as a president, the ultimate bearer of responsibility for state affairs. On the other hand, he shot down claims that there could be another declaration of martial law if he remains in power.
또다시 계엄이 발동될 것이라는 얘기들이 있습니다마는 분명하게 말씀드립니다. 제2의 계엄과 같은 일은 결코 없을 것입니다.
Meanwhile, this much-awaited address to the public lasted 2 minutes with no reporters allowed in the briefing room where it was broadcast live. It was officially announced to reporters just an hour before he made the live television appearance. Kim Do-yeon, Arirang News.
And with President Yoon's apology having come just hours ahead of the parliamentary vote, his apology appears to have failed to cool down the heat at the National Assembly. Our Kim Jung-sil joins us live. Jung-sil, bring us up to speed on the key developments.
Tommy, as you said, President Yoon's earlier remarks and national address has only elevated the debate here at the National Assembly, with both the ruling People Power Party and the main opposition Democratic Party reacting strongly. Now, let's first take a look at Democratic Party Chair Lee Jae-myung, who didn't hold back his criticism of the president's remarks.
It's deeply disappointing. The remarks completely fail to meet the public's expectations and only amplify their sense of betrayal and anger. The very existence of President Yoon is the greatest risk to South Korea.
He also stated that the only solutions are either President Yoon's immediate resignation or impeachment. Now moving on to the ruling People Power Party, Chair Han Dong-un has also spoken out, saying that early resignation of President Yoon is unavoidable. Take a listen.
It's become impossible for the president to carry out his duties in a normal capacity. We will discuss and carefully consider the best course of action for the nation and its people.
So, Jung-sil, we know that the opposition has been pushing hard for impeachment. Now, how will Yoon's address impact the vote, in any way?
Tammy, the president's address has caused a shift among ruling party lawmakers already who were supporting the impeachment. Initially, only 2 lawmakers have officially were on the stance, but one has already shifted his mind. Lawmaker Cho Kyung-tae has reversed his stance of supporting the impeachment and said that he now supports Chair Han Dong-hoon's approach to it with a structured resignation plan instead. Now, with his reversal and other potential changes in mind, the opposition faces an uphill battle to secure 8 votes needed for the impeachment motion to pass. The Democratic Party is urging PPP to take a stance. Take a listen to Chief Spokesperson Cho Seung-nae, who spoke to us earlier right after the president's address.
Didn't we see the courage of 18 People Power Party lawmakers who voted to lift martial law last time? That same courage must be shown in this impeachment vote for the sake of South Korea and its people. This is how the People Power Party can fulfill its role.
Well, Jung-sil, before I let you go, lastly, we heard about an emergency meeting between Han Dong-hoon, the ruling party's leader, and Prime Minister Han Duck-soo. What is the focus there?
That's correct, Tommy. The two Hans had an emergency meeting that lasted about 80 minutes right after the address. Now, afterwards, Chair Han arrived back here at the National Assembly and told reporters that the two discussed measures to ensure public's anxiety at the moment, and that they also decided to closely communicate on effectively managing the people's livelihoods and the economic situation. Now, that's all I have for now, but we'll have to keep an eye on the 5 p.m. vote tonight. That's all I have for now. Back to you, Dami.
A critical moment in South Korean politics. Jung-sil, thank you so much for that report. Now, President Yoon's political future hangs in the balance as Parliament is set to vote on his impeachment this afternoon following an abrupt declaration of martial law. What lies ahead for the troubled leader? We are joined by our Eun-ji here in the studio. Welcome back, Eun-ji.
Thanks for having me.
So, Eun-ji, we are just less than 3 hours away from the vote. Now, in the meantime, walk us through how the impeachment voting process works here in South Korea.
Sure, Dami. It was on Tuesday night when the whole country was plunged into political chaos after President Yoon unexpectedly declared martial law before reversing his announcement only hours later following a bipartisan parliamentary vote that rejected the order. Then on Thursday, 6 opposition parties submitted a bill calling for President Yoon's impeachment. According to the National Assembly Act, the vote must take place between 24 and 72 hours after submission, which needed to have taken place between Friday and Sunday. So the lawmakers have scheduled the vote for this afternoon at around 5 p.m. Now, removing the president requires a parliamentary 2/3 majority, meaning that more than 200 of all 300 lawmakers must vote in favor. The opposition bloc, which supports the motion to impeach the president, holds 192 seats. This means at least 8 votes are needed from President Yoon's governing party for the impeachment motion to pass. Since it's an anonymous vote, divisions within the ruling party suggest that defections are possible. So although we have just a few hours left until the vote takes place, it's still very hard to tell how the results will turn out at the moment.
Very hard to predict. Now, what are some of the possible scenarios? I mean, what if the impeachment motion is eventually passed?
If the impeachment passes, President Yoon will be immediately suspended from performing his duties until the result of an impeachment trial held by the Constitutional Court. Prime Minister Han Duck-soo will serve as the country's leader in the role of acting president. But challenges remain as it must be approved by the Constitutional Court that technically might not have enough judges. Normally, for the final judgment, at least 6 out of 9 judges must vote in favor of the motion, and it requires 7 justices to review the case. But the court currently has only 6 sitting justices, and it has up to 6 months to confirm the impeachment. Experts have said that technically 6 could be enough, but they'd all need to vote in favor. The opposition party lawmakers are working to have at least 1 new justice to proceed with the process, but it remains to be seen whether the prime minister, who will serve as the acting president in the event of an impeachment passing, will be given the power to appoint a new justice. Meanwhile, if the impeachment motion is rejected, the main opposition party has said it will immediately resubmit the motion. The Democratic Party lawmakers have vowed to continue to submit impeachment motions until it passes and said they will convene temporary parliamentary sessions every week to do this.
Alrighty, Eunji, thank you so much for the thorough wrap-up.
Thank you.
And large political rallies, both for and against President Yoon, are set to take place across the capital city in the run-up to the impeachment vote. We have our Eunji aunt out in Yeouido, where the voting will take place. Now, Eunji, are you spotting anything different there following the apology?
Yes, Tommy, so I've been here at the National Assembly since this morning in Yeongju-Pogu District, Seoul. So compared to this morning, there are certainly more people voicing their demands for President Yoon's resignation. And there are others who are in support of the president. And as you mentioned, President Yoon made his first public comments this morning apologizing for declaring martial law, whether it was enough to change people's minds, and what do those who oppose impeachment think. Let's hear what some of those had to say.
I support President Yoon's position and believe that declaring martial law is within the president's authority.
The address was so brief, almost like a short-form video. He said he would leave the rest to the other politicians. I truly questioned whether it was a decision made for the citizens. It seemed more like a move to protect his own position.
Eunji, I'm sure rallies today will gather more people here in the capital, through the day and probably up until late nighttime. Now, it's not just in Yeouido where you're standing by, right?
Yes, right, Tommy. So a large candlelight rally is scheduled for 3 p.m. right here near the National Assembly, which will be followed by a march. And it's expected to have around 200,000 participants in total. And another rally with 40,000 participants has been reported in the Gwanghwamun area. Citizens who have been protesting in cities across the country, including Busan and Gwangju, for the president's impeachment and the punishment of those behind the martial law, are now gathering in Seoul to unite their voices. University students are actively participating, and people of all generations are uniting to voice their demands for a better democratic society. In less than an hour, an even larger crowd is expected to gather here near the National Assembly. Large counter-protests by organizations in support of President Yoon are also planned across the country, including here near the National Assembly and around Gwanghwamun Square in central Seoul. One of the rallies near the National Assembly is expected to draw around 20,000 people, with protesters opposing the impeachment. The Liberty Unification Party and other groups will also hold a rally in the afternoon in central Seoul, in the Gwanghwamun area, where they will label the impeachment vote as illegal. With large protests taking place, the police will control traffic in parts of Seoul and several roads will be closed. So it is strongly recommended to use public transportation and take caution. Back to you, Tammy.
Things are already looking hectic there. Eunji, stay safe there and thank you for the report. President Yoon appeared back on a televised address now, this time with an apology for causing concern over his attempt to impose martial law. Let's dissect more with Professor Song Se-ryun this afternoon. Good afternoon, Professor Song.
Good afternoon.
So let's cut to the chase. Why do you think the motive is behind the apology this morning?
Well, many things. I think, first off, the apology came pretty late. But the public outrage about the martial law is very, very significant. And he heard from the United States and around the world how concerned they were. And this action clearly was misjudged. And I think he should have come out for damage control. But also significantly, the impeachment proceeding is to take place very, very shortly today. So I think he was backed into the corner, and probably apology and effectively announcing that his political future is going to be decided by his party. That announcement was a gist of his apology and his action. And again, I think that it came out too late.
Well, it did take him days to come out of the shell. Now, are you saying he did what he should have done then?
Yes, because of the backlash, because of the impact on the economy and the society, I think he should have anticipated that to ameliorate the situation, he should have come out earlier than that. Now, making an apology hours before the impeachment proceeding makes people wonder whether he's sincere about the apology, or is he doing that just to save his neck?
Well, despite the apology, the impeachment motion vote this afternoon will proceed as planned. The question is, what about investigations against him? They will be ongoing, right?
Right. The political question is quite different from the legal situation that he's facing. So the investigation by the prosecutor's office, police, and the CIO will all take place. The CIO, of course, is the investigation office of high-ranking officials. And they will have to investigate because he is under the charge of constitutional impropriety under Constitution and the Martial Law Act. And also he's charged with the insurrection, which is under criminal act in Korea. So the investigation have to go forward. Although the question is whether all three will be investigating or will there be some consolidation of the investigative powers.
Professor Song, as you know, President Yoon is the third leader already to face impeachment proceedings at the National Assembly. But what makes this case any different from the ones against former Presidents Park Geun-hye and also Roh Moo-hyun?
Well, President Park Geun-hye was charged with the corruption case and also abuse of power. Back then, because of the political the atmosphere, even after the Sewol the ferry disaster,
right.
I think there was a public outcry, and we experienced the prolonged period of citizens making protest at the time. So I think the political situation was quite different. Roh Moo-hyun is another case where his misbehavior in the election, the contribution, that was a little bit minor, but at the time, technically, it was a subject of lawful investigation of the impeachment. Yes, go ahead.
You mentioned the term insurrection earlier. Now, could you compare the insurrection charges against former President Chun Doo-hwan and also Roh Tae-ho? How is President Yoon's case any different from the ones that we saw in the past?
Well, quite different. Former President Chun Doo-hwan and Roh Moo-hyun, it was a full-blown military insurrection aiming to overthrow the government and seize the government, which they did. And also it led to the Gwangju massacre, significant suppression and abuse of the fundamental rights of people, and the casualties were significant. Compared to that, this president's antic the other day was relatively short. It was aiming to maneuver the political atmosphere according to the president, but of course the investigation is ongoing because it did have some element of disrupting quite unlawfully, unconstitutionally, limiting the powers of the National Assembly. So I think there are similarities in that they were all trying to usurp the government and unconstitutional acts, but in terms of the consequences, casualties, durations, they are quite different. So I think that there will go to the decision of the Constitutional Court, if it goes to the Constitutional Court, whether those two could be treated similarly.
We will have to get back to you, Professor Song, in the very near future. Thank you so much for connecting with us. As always, we appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you.
In related news, Yoon's first public apology since the declaration of the controversial martial law was viewed with much attention from media outlets around the world. Our Choi Min-jung has this report.
Foreign media outlets around the globe were quick to put the spotlight on President Yoon Suk-yeol's first address to the public since the imposition of the short-lived martial law. Major outlets such as Reuters, AP, and AFP reported President Yoon's national address as a major breaking news story, reporting that the South Korean president had apologized for declaring martial law and causing public concern. Also highlighted was the president's promise not to make another attempt to declare martial law. AP also said it wasn't immediately clear whether the impeachment motion submitted by opposition lawmakers would get the two-thirds majority required for Yoon to be impeached. But it appeared more likely after the leader of Yoon's own party called for the suspension of Yoon's constitutional powers. Likewise, CNN reported that pressure on Yoon has mounted, with protesters and opposition figures demanding his impeachment, and support wavering even within his own party and military. The New York Times highlighted Yoon's apology as well, but mentioned that he did not resign ahead of Saturday's impeachment vote, despite growing calls for him to step down. Japanese media also showed great interest by broadcasting President Yoon's national address live. NHK broadcasted President Yoon's speech live with real-time interpretation. Kyodo News also reported on the national address and underlined that Yoon did not mention resignation. Yomiuri Shimbun and the Asahi Shimbun also reported Yoon's address to the nation as a breaking news story on their homepages. China's Global Times covered the report with a detailed timeline of the controversy sparked by Yoon's declaration of martial law earlier this week. Choi Min-jung, Arirang News.
As President Yoon reassured the public himself earlier this morning, the Defense Ministry earlier stressed there will be no second martial law order under any circumstances. Kim Bo-kyung reports.
Military officials are reported to be reassured following President Yoon's public address on Saturday morning, where he said there would be no second martial law decree. Acting Defense Minister Kim Sun-ho had already addressed concerns over the possibility of one being issued, denying claims raised on Friday.
Even if there were any demands for martial law to be declared, the Ministry of Defense and the Joint Chiefs of Staff would never accept them.
Minister Kim apologized for the confusion caused by this week's martial law declaration. He pledged full cooperation with the upcoming investigation by the prosecution, including dispatching military prosecutors for a joint inquiry. Kim also instructed relevant agencies to preserve original documents and prevent any tampering with them. This was followed by the Archives Agency's request to the Presidential Office and Defense Ministry to preserve all documents related to martial law declaration. After Acting Minister Kim's statement, the Defense Ministry removed 3 senior military officers linked to the December 3rd imposition of martial law. The commanders of the Capital Defense, Special Warfare, and Defense Security Commands have been suspended from their duties and transferred to other units. The ministry has sent applications to the Ministry of Justice for travel bans to be placed on 10 military officials facing treason and other charges related to martial law, including these 3 commanders. 2 of these commanders have already spoken out. In a YouTube interview with lawmaker Kim Byung-ju, Army Special Warfare Command Commander Kwak Jong-gun revealed that former Defense Minister Kim Yong-hyun instructed him to remove lawmakers from the plenary session and that President Yoon followed up on the operation. Capital Defense Command Commander Lee Jin-woo also stated that President Yoon contacted him about the National Assembly situation. Meanwhile, Hong Jang-won, the first deputy director of the NIS, revealed that after martial law was declared, President Yoon personally instructed him to arrest the key political figures and, quote, clean up. Hong made the statement during his appearance at the National Assembly on Friday. The director Cho Tae-yong, however, said he received no direct orders from Yoon about arresting any politicians, contradicting Hong's claims. The National Assembly's Intelligence Committee began holding a session on Saturday morning to conduct an urgent inquiry into this issue, but in the absence of the first deputy director. Kim Bo-kyung, Arirang News.
And the political crisis in Korea has drawn attention all the way from Sweden as well, where Nobel Week is underway. Just yesterday, Korean author and Nobel laureate Han Kang addressed the situation during a press conference. Our culture correspondent Song Yujin reports from Stockholm.
December 3rd was a night of shock for many in Korea, including author Han Kang, this year's Nobel laureate in literature. Currently in Stockholm for Nobel Week, Han shared their thoughts on Korea's political turmoil during a press conference on Friday, a subject she found deeply personal.
To write Human X, I studied the martial law situation from late 1979. Witnessing martial law unfold again in 2024 was startling. But what was different this time was how everything was broadcast live for everyone to see in real time.
Human X explores Korea's painful history during the 1980 democratization movement in Gwangju City. The movement arose as a response to the brutal military suppression that followed martial law in 1979. Although the martial law declaration this time lasted only a few hours, Han says what she witnessed left a profound impact.
I saw people trying to stop armored vehicles with their bodies, others holding back soldiers with their hands, and some standing firm against advancing troops with guns. As the soldiers withdrew, some even called out, "Take care," like they were saying goodbye to their sons. I could feel their sincerity and courage.
What also struck her was the difference in the behavior of police officers and soldiers compared to the violence of 1979.
They seemed to be grappling with the unexpected situation, trying to make their own judgments while holding back as much as possible. From the perspective of their commanders, it might have looked passive, but I saw it as an active effort, thinking, feeling, and searching for a solution grounded in universal values.
Han also offered her thoughts on what role literature can play during times of crisis.
I sincerely hope we don't return to the past where force and suppression silence the press. Literature allows us to delve into the inner lives of others while exploring our own. This process builds the strength to think, judge, and act decisively in difficult moments. Literature isn't something extra, it's essential.
Han will continue her Nobel Week schedule on Saturday, this time meeting the public at her Nobel Prize lecture. Song Yujin, Arirang News, Stockholm.
That wraps it up for us for now. We'll be back with a live coverage of the impeachment motion vote later at 5:30 p.m. Korea time. Thanks for watching.